Hello and welcome back to another video from me, David Jones, and Trading 212. We're going to continue a little bit with the theme of market psychology, but we're also going to talk about some trading strategies. And what I'm going to talk about in this video is the idea of trends. Now before you switch off, because I'm sure when you first look at markets, one of the things we're told is to trade with the trend. The trend is your friend. But I think rather than going through the usual textbook approach in this video, we'll talk about why trends form, why they're important to us when we're trying to figure out which way a market's going to go, and also to look at some real life examples of recent trends. So first of all, let me assume that you know very little about trends. We'll start from the basics. This is only going to take a few minutes to go through. But if I start off, scribbling on the line, on the pad, the classic trend looks something like this. If you see it in the textbooks, it's a market moving higher, and then maybe the market sells off a bit, setting a low, but the buyers come back in and the market moves higher still, and so we go. So this is the classic example of an uptrend. And of course, trends don't just happen by magic, because what moves markets is people buying and selling, whether they're trading small or they're trading for a large bank, or it's an algorithm on some computer somewhere that's driving the markets. It's the action of buyers and sellers that move markets. And what we're seeing in this example here in an uptrend, we're seeing basically the markets becoming more and more positive. When we see the market sell off, the buyers come in a little bit earlier every time. They don't wait for it to go back to the last low. They jump in and push the market higher. So that's the basics of how trends get formed. And we have, broadly speaking, three types of trend: an uptrend when the market's rising, a downtrend when the market's falling, and in a falling market, the way to make money is by short selling. And then of course a sideways trend when the market's not doing anything. It's just chopping around sideways. But let's take a step back and look at it. What does that mean to us when we're trading? Trading is a game of probabilities. We're trying to stack the odds in our favor. So if we see a market that's doing this, I think the temptation from a human psychology point of view is to try and pick the top. So I think plenty of us, when markets are rising, we want to try and be clever and pick the top. When markets are falling, we want to be trying clever and pick the bottom. But again, we have to try and reverse our psychology. So when the market's rising like this, what we should be doing is looking to trade with the trend. And I know it's a cliche, but it's true. What are the chances that you pick the absolute top in a market that's been rising for days, weeks, and maybe even months? It's highly unlikely. It's much less painful to trade in the direction of the trend. Here's a real example from recently. So over the last few weeks, the London stock market, so the London stock market index, the FTSE 100, has risen from around about 6,600 to 7,300. So it's rallied by about 10%. Now you can see, hopefully, you can see here on the Trading 212 platform how clear that trend is. And just look at that for a second. Where has the clever money been in this market? What's been the way to make money? Clearly, the answer is going with the trend. Now, looking at the market where it is now, I think, again, our human psychology maybe tells us, well, I should be thinking about selling, but hopefully you can see how that would have been the wrong thing to do over recent weeks. So when we see a market like this, what we're looking to do, it is to trade with the trend. It's a saying you've heard so many times, but I think you've heard it from a reason, because it works. It doesn't work all the time, but as a way of tilting the odds slightly in our favor, if we see a market where there's a clear, strong trend in place, the ideal thing is to try and find the right time to jump on board that trend. And I'll talk a bit more about that when I do another video where we talk about looking for key levels in the market. I think that's something that can help you identify, where do I get onto this trend. But hopefully, just these last few minutes has hopefully explained the psychology behind market trends, what fuels them, and why we should be looking to trade with the trend as traders. So that's it for this video. We're going to look at the key levels next, but for now, for me and trading 212, if there's any other topics you'd like us to cover, just leave us a message in the comments below.